All right, we're gonna look right here at this really cool visual, and we're gonna work from the bottom up on this. So we are going to talk about the different staff roles, and while we go through this, make sure you know who you are and which one of these other groups you work with. So you have in orange, the teacher, you can see that is the traditional at-school teacher. They are going to make sure their students have orientation. They're going to use Apex, or use the due dates for pacing. They're going to make sure that their students have 60 minutes hands on the platform per week. And then they're going to be prepared to proctor remotely. So then looking at the green, all the way over to the other side, you've got the Itech site coordinator, who is the person who we will communicate from Itech. That will be the person who will get the primary information. So for your school, that's going to be Sandy. And then the Itech teachers, and those are district-wide teachers. Most of what they do is grading, feedback. We give feedback on each individual assignment. We make site visits, but they are infrequent. So if you look at these two bottom circles, the traditional and Itech, that's what we had before this year. So what we have added into this is the blue circle and everything that goes with it. So you have your at-home teacher and you have your at-home proctor. Some of these things will be together and some of them will be separate. So if you are working as an at-home teacher in an independent place, that means you're going to be doing your orienting, your teaching, your grading, and you're going to proctor tests. If you are working with a proctor, you're going to do the orientation, the grading, that mentoring and goal setting, but your proctor is going to be the one who will do most of the actual testing for your students. So the reason it says at-home teacher may proctor summative tests is that if you are working synchronously and you want your whole class to take a test at the same time, you certainly can do that. But if Johnny and Susie are absent, you will have that proctor who can unlock those and let them in to do those tests at a separate time. So looking at the overlap here, you've got your at-home site team could include an at-home teacher, an at-home proctor, and the Itech site coordinator. In your case, it will, because Sandy is going to be one of the people that does proctoring. So just take a look here. Apex is what we have chosen as our digital partner. That is the textbook that we're using. That's going to be the primary way that students are seeing what their grades are. Apex and Synergy do not talk to each other. So it has been decided that instead of having to submit a certain number of grades into Synergy, if you are keeping your Apex platform up to date with your graded material, that is the coach reports that come home on the weekend, that is enough for parents to know how your students are doing.
Hey, can I pause?
Yep.
This chart is awesome, but I see the word mentor nowhere in here, and up till now our site has been using the word mentor instead of at-home proctor, so we just standardize terminology here. Okay. Are we using the word mentor anytime, or should I be referring to them as at-home proctors? Because I just sent messages out to all of my kids explaining what a mentor is, and now we have a different term.
This is absolutely something that at your site, you're going to have to get your terminology so that you understand it. This visual is going to be something that's going to be available to parents. So you may need to call them mentor proctors or something, so that there is a, oh, okay, I know who that is. If somebody was looking at this visual and they actually read that box, they would say, oh, I know what they're talking about right there. So part of it is, you know, we're trying to shore things up at this point. Okay, I'm going to give you some basic information, and then we're going to dive.
Hey, can we just talk about it for a second? Does anybody have a problem with us just switching it so that we match with what the parents are going to see? I mean, shouldn't the kids and the parents, everybody just have the same technology? Are we all good with this? Does anybody have a problem with getting rid of mentors and switching it all to what is it, proctors?
I think proctor is too negative. I don't think we should do proctor. It makes the proctors feel like they're less than regular teachers, and they need trophies.
I think they should be called loser proctors, meaning not good enough for the regular classroom.
All right, cool. I guess next time we have an at-home meeting, we can talk about it.
Yes, I'm going to go through this, and then we're going to have time for you to look at what your site plan is, and you're going to have to, as a building, make some decisions to just tighten things up.
Rebecca, I have a question. Whose job, or is it anybody's job, whose job is it to, like, hey, you haven't logged on to Apex ever? Like, do we even do that? They chose at home learning and then they just have to do it or not do it? Is that somebody's job?
Well, that is going to be one of those team kinds of things. If you are the primary teacher on a class and you see that students have not logged on and you've reached out to them, it's going to be just like it would be in a traditional setting, where you then let the counselor know, I haven't seen this student, I've sent these emails, can you get in touch with them? And so that is going to keep the counselors in the counselor role and the teachers in a teacher role. So this information here on blended learning, part of this is that idea of when you are working at school and you're trying to get your students prepared to either work with you or to work remotely, this is information that is available on our website. Kim Loomis did a training specifically for Matsu that is posted here. There is a flight that you can sign up for on Frontline, but there's also, if you watch this and then you have questions, there are free webinar discussions that anybody can join for free, that you can go in and ask her specific questions about, hey, I saw that idea of the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, your blended learning models. Can you give me a specific way that you would do this in a math classroom, or in, if I'm working on this particular job? So she will be able to give you specific answers to your scenarios, and she would love to have people join. So this 1/3, 1/3, this gives you here the idea that 1/3 is going to be the digital curriculum. That's the part where they're actually engaging with Apex if you're in the classroom. 1/3 teacher-led instruction, and 1/3 peer-to-peer, socially distant, masked activities. So you may have to be creative as far as, hey, you're in a group, but you're actually not going to huddle like we normally would. But this gives them, you can have them work on shared documents, shared project, those kinds of things, so that they definitely have that time together, because that's what they are really coming to school for, is being able to see their friends and work with their friends. So some other ideas of ways to use blended learning. This slide, we are really working from a hybrid model right now, because we have 4 days in class. Well, some of us have 4 days in class. Some of us, like Colony High, are already in this other section here with the completely from distance. So this is the whole preparation thing, is to make sure that students, when they are moving to Apex, that instead of suddenly adding something completely different, you're just saying, okay, we've always done 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Now, the third that we're really concentrating on is that part at home. And then if it turns out to be a long-term closure, you can add back in the Zoom meetings with the direct instruction from the teacher. You can add in those group projects, but this will make it so that there's a continuity. When they go to distance, they know already what it is they're going to do. And because we have those Fridays, that's a great time to practice that. And as we get into the year further, being able to even give them things to do that are group projects that they are doing from a distance. So this is just a reminder, Apex calendar, use it as a pacing guide. It, just like any other pacing guide, it doesn't mean everybody's going to be on exactly the same page at exactly the same time, but it does give kids the ability to move back and forth as their families need to. So,
Ms. Kitchen, can I ask something real quick?
of course.
If our at-home learners are all obviously on Apex classes, will their calendar show all of the classes so they can pace that are in the classes? Will it combine all of their Apex classes in one calendar? I believe it does.
No.
Okay. So I do have some kiddos that it does. So does that just mean for Cyber Center kids and independent study kids? Because I do have students that have multiple classes on their calendar.
Which calendar is it that you're looking at though?
I'm looking at this for the student calendar for pacing. The students have a calendar for their pacing.
Oh.
And yeah, so, okay, Jane, am I?
We need to talk because.
I don't think there's an individual one for each student or for each course. I think they are merged, aren't they? So if they're in 6 classes, it's going to have assignments on there, right?
I believe so, yeah. So.
Which is kind of good. If they've got, you know, if they're an at-home learner with 6 classes, then they can work it out. We've had the A week, B week questions, and ultimately they're working on a 2-week system. Basically, they got to be caught up in 2 weeks.
Sandy, do you have that calendar up in front of you?
I do not, because I'm not in the student view just yet, but I can get it up here.
Okay, if you, give a wave, or, you know, let me know when you have that up and we'll take a look at it.
Okay.
So have a plan. So this is really where we're getting into, all right, what is Colony doing? So these are questions that we get all the time. Where do I find my work? Who do I talk to? What do I have to do? Because we have the A week, B week, due dates are, you're going to have to repeat over and over again that this is our guideline. This is general, because they're going to either be ahead a week or behind a week, you know, depending on which week it is. So that is something that you will need to make sure parents understand. Tools that you can use. It sounds like you guys are already using a Google Classroom. You can use a calendar in Google Classroom if you have a centralized place. We're going to talk about this a little bit more when we get into proctoring. Parent communication. If you need to make individual communications or a group class and you're working at an at-school, Synergy is still the best way to make sure that you get all those students. Apex does not have I'm going to send a group email to this class function. So let's look at you. So what we have here is what you have shared so far as what your profile is. Then we have who to ask. These are things that we are saying should be available to parents. They need to know who these people are. I know that some of this is on your website. Whoever is in charge of making sure that everything is there, just go through this list and make sure that parents and students have a one-stop shop way to get this information. Another thing that is on this is, remember I said those coach reports will come home. This is the document that you can send if you get those individual questions from parents. The coach report is very complex. Some of it's going to apply, some of it is not. So this, for those parents who want all the information, this is a really good description for them so that they can go through and know exactly what's available on those reports. Course protocol. Jane put this document together. This gives you the basic things that all students who are enrolled in Itech courses are going to be expected to know and to use and to do. So looking through this as a group and seeing, okay, for our site plan, because Itech is a separate program, but we're kind of partnering this year. So Sandy and your proctors are going to need the information. What are your expectations at Colony High in relation to this? So due dates, course progression, are there going to be changes as far as your settings? Are you all going to rename your failed quiz thing? So just getting your terminology. These can be talking points for you for that site plan. And then looking here, your proctor plan, this document has our recommendations on it for things that you'll need to decide. How do you know when a student's ready to test? And then there, you can disregard this template here. This has already been created for your school, and I will attach it to this page right here where it says CHS shared proctoring link. This is going to be a form that when someone that is not the primary teacher proctors a test for a student, they fill this out so that you as the primary teacher can say, oh, you took that test? Well, let me look and see what this sheet says about who proctored it, whether you finished it, the date, those kinds of things. So it gives you data, but it also gives teachers and the whole team the ability to see what students are doing. And on that form, the last thing is a comment section. So those comments can be positives, like the student worked really hard on this. They can be just observations, like one time I think Sandy filled it out and the comment was, a giant bull moose walked behind the student during testing. So this can be something that can give you information about what's going on with your students and what's happening when they go to proctor things. So this also gives you sort of the step-by-step. This is what proctoring could look like.
Can I, when you're done with this, I have it up.
Okay. And then the other document that is on there is much more detailed information. So once you've made those, if you are someone that needs to know these specific things, you can go in and look. Part of this, it includes, there's TSTs in your courses. Kids cannot do those from distance because it would require them to print them out. It would require you unlocking it and having them have access to those final tests. So here's some ideas that we used for for putting in those grades. And you can use that outline, remove the TST that is in there, and then put your own assignment in for whatever that final is going to be. So that's more information than you probably need at this moment. So last thing then is going to be to look at the Colony High profile. There are some numbers that are not filled in on this because I did not have the numbers for how many students you have in each class. This is an absolute snapshot. When this was put together, you had 222 at-home learners. And the big observation that we had was that from looking at this, and this is from your home learning page, it's not clear from this yet how students access that proctoring. And one of the discussions that you need to have as a team is figuring out how many students should be assigned to each proctor. Having to table those. Remember, for 6 proctor, times 5 or your 30 times 6. If it's not 200 students to one proctor, and then you figure, oh, they each have different courses. They each of those students have 6 different classes. The math becomes exponential as far as the number of students who are going to need to have things proctored. And it's not an even process. So when it comes to finals week, you may need to provide extra proctoring at that time when you have students who are at-home learners and they are trying to take their finals, and you have 200 students trying to finish their last unit, finish their final, and somebody needs to proctor 1,000 tests that week. So make sure that you look at that as you go through your site plan. Okay, so there is the giving you information. What we have now is time for you to ask questions, and you can interact with each other as well as asking us questions if you would like to.
Can I share my screen so the teachers know what I was talking about?
This is the calendar, right?
Right.
Okay.
So I'm going to share my screen real quick. Hang on. Okay, so what I have shared is what a student, her name is Daffy Duck. She is registered right now in a few Apex courses. On the right-hand side, right underneath messages, Daffy can look at her calendar. So when Daffy opens up her calendar, what it will show her the month of September, she will know every single assignment for each class that she is in, what the due dates are. For example, she's got a few assignments here on Wednesday for French 1. Those 3 assignments are due on that day. So at this point, if the students are all on 6 periods of classes, these assignment dates are your cascaded due dates that are in the student progress report, or whatever it's named now. So it's coinciding. It's just a different visual than the student progress report. It's a better visual for high school students, in my opinion, because at-home learners will have 6 progress reports that they'll have to toggle back and forth, and this puts it all in one location. And that's it. How do I unshare? Okay, here we go. All right.
Well, that is my new thing for the day, because I have not been in that site coordinator role helping students with this, and that is very helpful.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. I see somebody asking for a video. Sandy and Jane have done all these amazing videos. If you have a specific video request, we can do that for we Sandy and Jane can do that for you. So all the how-to videos are on the Itech and Apex website, but I do not think we have one that tells students how to find Jane, are you saying yes, we do?
Yes, I just pasted it into the chat, but it is right off the resource sheet and it is the last page of the student orientation. It's called Student Calendar and Due Dates.
See, I feel like I should have gotten the reminder email. You know, Mrs. Kitchen, you should check your resource sheet. We have a video for that.
It's actually not a video, but it shows it to them.
Oh.
If you need a video, I just clicked on it. Yeah, it's a screenshot of what the calendar looks like with an explanation.
Okay.
But we could do a video if you have requests.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do a video and post it on the district-wide site so we can refer all schools to it.
So Todd, I see your comment about due dates being off. Absolutely. That is an issue that we cannot really get around this year. So that is where the information about the coach report is going to be really important for parents. And just that Colony has a sort of a unified approach to when parents ask, this is the answer that you're going to give them. So if you are a classified staff member and you need some extra training or proctor training, really Sandy is going to get together with those of you who are paras who will be looking at Apex really from a student viewpoint. So if you're not going to be grading, you're not going to be proctoring, but you are going to be working directly with students from the student side of things, she is going to have a time set up that she will give you the information that you're going to need as a student assistant from a student view.
Can I ask a question since they're all in here?
Yeah.
They are still having difficulties getting into Apex through apexvs.com.
Mm-hmm.
Can I confirm the paras that are here? Can I confirm you got in already? Because I've gotten 3 emails. Have you been able to?
I was working with them right at the beginning, so if they can answer, I know a couple got in.
Yeah, let us know if you still are not able to get in. We need to know who you are so that we can troubleshoot that and make sure that you can get in.
Okay, thank you.
So we're up for new questions, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so I remember when we first created mentors or at-home proctors, whatever we're going to call them, Sandy said she was going to add them to our classes. Were we still supposed to add them to our classes, or is that going to be done from your guys' side?
We are not going to do that. Colony High, when you're working with Colony High site-based kind of things, that is going to be something that you manage yourselves. So that needs to be something that is agreed upon.
Yeah, no, I thought the site thing, and that's why Sandy said she would do it. I'm asking Sandy, are you planning?
Okay, wait, you're cutting out.
Yeah.
Can you say it again?
So I did tell the teachers, the at-home teachers, that I would add all of the mentors to their classes.
Okay, perfect.
at that point, their teachers and whatnot were still in flux.
Okay.
So that is on my to-do. And so as soon as I do that, the other thing I wanted to tell you guys that I did go in, I don't have the most updated spreadsheet for our at-home learners. Today, I will also be going in and coding them correctly in regards to XX and 12. So when you run your reports, when everybody runs reports, you will know who the at-home learners are. And this is like for Jamie Neal, and who the seniors are, because those are our two high profile, things. So I have already done 99% of it. There's a couple of things that are hiccups, and I will figure out those hiccups and get that done.
Yeah, so nobody explained that to us. I did notice that there was XX after all of my students all of a sudden. So XX just means they're at-home learners, and then
Yes.
what's the 12 thing? What's
Yes.
the 12?
And the reason for that is that we can't see synergy for all of our Apex students. And so in Apex, we need to be able to just look and see, oh, that's a Colony High at-home learner that I'm communicating with. And then the 12, obviously, we know that those students, we need to, graduation coach needs to know, site coordinator needs to know, you guys need to know that it's a graduation issue at stake there. So if students say, hey, can I remove the XX from after my name? The answer is no, do not remove the XX from after your name.
Hey, Rebecca, did you want to talk about that proctoring spreadsheet that for proctors we fill out?
Okay, so yeah, I need the link for your specific one. It's going to be on slide 23 with the shared proctoring link. It is a Google form that everyone will fill out as students say, hey, I'm ready to test. And then that will drop into a Google Sheet that teachers will have view only on that Google Sheet, just so that data isn't removed. When you fill out the Google form and say, so-and-so was here for testing, they completed this test, there's some that are drop down, some that you need to fill in, you will get a receipt. So if you realize after you submit that form, oh no, I put the wrong student, the wrong class, whatever, you can go in individually and revise your submissions there.
Can I show them what the form looks like?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Ta-da!
Ta-da!
Okay, so that's what the form looks like. And then basically it's attached to the spreadsheet that, of course, there isn't in. And it will have everything on here. Oops, sorry. It will have whoever has proctored, the student, lots of information, and admin really likes this so that we can crunch numbers and other things that I don't know about, because that's it. Okay, so here's the form. Oops, wrong. Hang on, where'd the form go? Oops, sorry, there. Perfect. Okay, the end.
Okay, and I'm gonna share my screen here. This is just an example so that you can see, this was our distant proctors tests from this summer. So you can see at the top, 145. You can have all the who's responded. You can have completed. So if you want to get in there and sort it for your own information, you click file, and then that will be your own copy, and then you can sort it. But this is actually in there that you'll be able to see some of the questions.
Why everybody at Colony High who's proctoring a test should be internet data into this spreadsheet?
If someone proctors a test for a student and there is, like when we give SATs, when we give any kind of standardized test and there's an issue, the comment section on this will be that place where if there's any irregularities, you can see that information. On this one, if students are taking tests and the teacher doesn't know that students have taken that test, they won't necessarily have that alert that the student is done with that unit. So the reason that this is only for shared proctoring for students where more than one teacher is working with a student is this makes it completely transparent. This gets that triangulation of information so that the teacher, the proctor, they know, the students know that it's been reported. And then if there's questions from parents, you also have this information. So it's great for admin to be able to look at in those reports, but it is part of making sure that there is crystal clear communication between your proctors and your teachers.
So in the chat, we're talking about whether we should all do that, or if it should just be when proctors that aren't the teacher are doing it. Because shouldn't the proctors also know if a test has been already taken, or I don't know. Is there value in the teacher also filling this out? Just like whenever a test is given, we always use this form after the test or during the test so that we have a record of it.
The reason that you wouldn't is if you teach where you have a situation, you're the primary teacher, you give a test, you don't want to fill this out for 20 students individually while they're testing in front of you. But if you look in Apex and you go into your students' information in your gradebook, you will be able to see from the backside who it was that opened the test. So it's not necessary. If you've done it yourself, you'll be able to go in and see through Apex that you did it. This is more so that the primary teacher who is responsible for all those grades knows exactly who the touch points are for their kids. So from a primary teacher point of view, this gives you the control over your class, even though other people are helping you proctor. So those proctors, if you say proctor, and I know there's the question of, is that the term you want to use? But really, they're not the teacher of that class in that situation. And so you could choose to have everyone fill it out, all the teachers fill it out, but I think it would become cumbersome and then you might not have accurate data. But it's your choice because it's your site plan. If you all want to fill it out, you just go right ahead. You fill it all out. I think Susan would like to volunteer to fill it out for everyone.
At this point, I probably think that the proctors would be able to fill it out. Therefore, the at-home teachers, if there is a question, they can see exactly who proctored that test and whether or not it maintained the validity, the testing environment. But that's just me.
And if it turns out that the student started the test and then walked away, that's a good thing to put in the comments section. So if the student says, no, I did that test, I checked in with this person, you'll be able to see, well, they started, but they didn't finish it.
And sometimes that happens because of an internet outage at their home.
So this is a coordination meeting, right, for the whole site now? We're just taking questions and solving issues. That's what we're
Ask
going for.
us what you need to and talk to each other as you need to. Absolutely.
Well, Nate Boleen brought up in the chat, he said, well, so shouldn't we have the same submission process for study guides? And so I think we're all on board for creating the failed quizzes 1.B. Is that what you said, Sandy?
It will automatically assign what it's
A
called.
number?
Yeah, so if you say, oops, I messed up on that and you need to remove it, it will just create C or D or E, but it'll always be at the beginning of the course. And it can be used as many times as a student needs to, so they don't have to worry, oh, I already submitted something there.
So they submit it with a link, and then the next time they use that same assignment, there's just a second link in that history. Is that right?
Yeah. You will see everything that has been submitted, and they will just see it as, oh, I just attached something. To them, it will just look like a new assignment that they're.
But for the proctors, if they don't want to like go find that specific email, they just click on the assignment, double click on the assignment, the history comes up, and they just take the last link that was sent.
Yes, they could do.
Okay.
I mean, students should be resubmitting that link. And the other thing is, if you leave your settings for your courses so that students can reset themselves once before they ask you to reset it, that's another place that you would want to go into that history, so that when, you know, they do the if dad says no, ask mom kind of thing, you can look and see, well, I see that you reset it, and then this other staff member reset it, and this other staff member. Instead of resetting it, we're going to click the arrow to move you on, and you're going to just do the next thing. And one of the reasons for having that where they can reset it and then an adult can reset it for them, the quizzes are 3 questions deep. So if they take it 3 times, they should be seeing different questions each time. If they take it more than 3 times, they're starting to recycle the same questions again.
I just wanted to ask the group, I'm totally new to the at-home learning. Somewhere it was recommended that I create Google Classrooms and that students put their study guides in Google Classrooms that then the mentors are also teachers with. Is that not what we're doing, and I should not do that?
Okay.
We should not do that. I'm doing that right now too, Leslie, and we're going to have to change that because it's not effective for the mentors. They're going to get an email from a student saying, hey, I failed a quiz. You're my mentor, my proctor. Here's my link. And they're going to use the assignment that we create, the failed quiz assignment. And that way they'll get the link and the request all together in one package. It's an email, and they'll act on it to set up a time for that.
Really don't even need to contact the student. If the student has made the request appropriately and you have looked at the study guide and it's complete, you just go to the gradebook and move them forward or reset. I'm not sure which you guys are doing, but in the Itech world, that's how we do it. So every day as a virtual teacher, I get emails where students have selected assignment 1B. They have sent me a Google link to their digital notebook with a study guide, asked me to move them forward from quiz 1.1.3. I glance at it, move them forward, and it keeps them going. And these would be all the red shaded boxes that you see in your gradebook. Those are all kids who have locked up their courses.
Jane, how do you know whether to reset it or to move them forward? Because I thought, are we giving them another chance or are we moving them forward? What's your
we have always
flowchart?
In the Itech world, we give them 2 attempts before it locks them. We have had, for example, core content teachers like math and English, if it's kind of teacher discretion. With at-home learners, I've had, you know, my sister came in and hit my keyboard and I failed the quiz. Is there any way I can take it a 3rd time? So you leave that option open just in case there's extenuating circumstances. Or as a math or a science or English, as a core content teacher, you really want them to go back, study, and take it again and master the concepts. It would be you sort of forcing the issue that they need to go back and study some more.
And if you decide, and sometimes there's questions like, I spelled it wrong, or I disagree with this, and then they want to justify their answer. Because you are the primary teacher, if they can explain and they have a valid reason for having chosen the answer they did, or there's an error, which sometimes happens, you can override the grade that they received and just type it into the box. And it will just say in that history that Mr. Hill entered, 18 points for this. So it will be in that history. So you don't have to go in and specifically justify why you're changing that grade. If you have had that conversation and you think that the student should get the credit for that, you're the teacher, you have the ability to do that.
So this is where it gets kind of confusing for the mentors, just FYI, as a team, as a CHS team, at-home learners. If, say, John Hill has 3 attempts on his quizzes and Ms. Bunch has 1 attempt on her quizzes and Stephanie Hayes has 2 attempts, we don't know, as your proctors, we don't know who's on first. So, and so we'll just need to know that information, or we'll just do a site-based, you get 2 chances and then we're moving you forward. So whatever works.
That would be a good agreement to make now in front of everybody. Do you want students to be able to reset themselves once and then contact you for a reset? And then if they contact you again, you just move them on? Or do you want them, they fail it once, they have to contact you? I see 2 attempts. Do I hear anybody else? 2 attempts. Okay, good. So far, all comments say 2 attempts. Okay.
Less than half of our staff is here. I don't know that we can make a decision with less than half of our staff here on what the school is doing as a whole.
Okay, so then in that
optional training.
This then needs to be, Sandy, because you're working as the coordinator, make sure that this goes on the list of this is what we need to decide. We're recording this, so people who aren't here right now will be able to know that that's a decision that needs to be made. So then the other thing that really needs to be hammered out is where you're going to let students know who's proctoring and when. Because that seems a little nebulous at this point. One thing that some sites have done is they have the one at-home learning Google Classroom, and they use that calendar to post those Zoom links on.
I believe we figured this out, okay. And I believe Miss Hayes and Miss Johns were putting together the calendar. That the at-home teachers were going to, Miss Hayes, am I saying this correctly?
Stephanie, what are we doing?
Are we talking about the calendar right now?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I was grading some assignments. So the calendar is put together. I need to double check and see. So we posted it on our virtual learning website, but John Hill emailed me right away and said, nope, it's not visible to me. It's totally visible to me and Sabrina, but Sabrina and I are the authors of the calendar. So we need to work on our settings to make it visible to everyone. We just want to be careful with our settings because we don't want to share it so that students can edit said calendar. We want them to view the calendar. So we just need to play with the settings. And as soon as that's done, it's going to be rock and rolling. That'll be done today.
And then the teachers, what you're trying to do is the teachers will embed that in their Google Classrooms so that their students know who their proctor is and what our Zoom links are and our proctor times, correct?
Yep, we can sure do that. And I can put together a little quick video too to show how to embed something.
Okay.
Okay, so let me clarify then, because I am a student. I have several teachers. Am I going to have to go to each different teacher's Google Classroom?
Nope.
Or is there one calendar that each teacher is going to share?
There is. So what we put together is one calendar with everybody at CHS who is teaching an Apex course has their Zoom links present on that calendar.
Okay.
So I can, as student A, I can go on there and say, okay, so there's Miss Nilsson, I need to grab hers. There's Miss Johns, I need to grab hers, all in one location.
And we're talking about at-home teachers doing their at-home, or just all teachers that have Apex classes. We're talking
Sabrina, are you on here? Because Sabrina was the one collecting teacher information.
I think it was basically our at-home teachers and then the proctors.
Okie doke.
So if you are an at-school teacher and you go remote, unless you specifically ask somebody to proctor something, if you are an at-school teacher, you pretty much are self-contained in taking care of those kiddos yourself. Is that correct for Colony High? When you go remote, are you suddenly having kids go other places? Or if you are the at-school teacher, you are self-contained? Who's teaching an at-school class?
This is Todd Hopkins, I am. And
Okay.
That's kind of the question that we have, and I posted it in the chat, is as a at-school teacher, when would I use the services of a proctor or mentor? I don't.
Okay, so
It's never been defined.
yes, you can decide that as a site. I would recommend that you stay self-contained unless you have a student who is unable to use your times. If there's a student who is having difficulty with access or times, they have, 4 or 5 other siblings that don't, those kinds of things, you may want to have a secondary person who would be the person who would help you out for those one-off situations where you needed that.
Okay, let me see if I can clarify this. I see that Sabrina Johns is shaking her head no.
Okay, Sabrina.
So from what I understand, and I'm hoping I have this right, we have proctors for at-home students only. I am going to proctor, Sabrina Johns is going to proctor, and Nathan Boleen is going to proctor for the teachers that are teaching at-home students only. All other teachers will be testing their own kids. That's it.
This is Brett. Let me chime in a little bit and explain why it's set up this way. At-home teachers are being given a higher caseload to grade than a normal teacher. They're way beyond 30 kids per period. Some up to 65, I understand, at your building, which is pretty high. And they will never have time to proctor those kids also. But at school teachers, when they have to go remote, they don't have any more kids in their period than they did when they were in the building. So they should have enough time to proctor their own students, except in that one-off type of situation that Becky was talking about. And so really, the design that you're going towards is exactly what we would recommend, that the proctors are being utilized only for the at-home teachers to help them with their giant caseload, and for Itech kids that are enrolled in Itech that Sandy's working with.
This is Todd. Can I ask another question with regard to this? The at-school teachers haven't been trained to proctor. Are there best practices for a kid to take a test? You have to be on a Zoom. How do you know that the environment has been good? We haven't been trained to do any of that.
So on slide 23 of the slide presentation that I shared, there are 2 documents at the bottom of that. One of them is the Proctor plan. On that, it gives the step-by-step suggestions for how a student would have a test proctored. So, Todd, do you have both at home and at school classes?
No, I have all at school classes. But
Okay. So if you are, like, I know Colony right now, you are trying to keep things synchronous because you've got a short-term closure. If it's a short-term closure, it's probably best, if you know you're coming back next week, that you save that testing until you have those kids back face-to-face. But you're going to have situations where someone's sick, someone's out, someone has to quarantine. Then that document on slide 23, that Proctor plan, will be that step-by-step. The student shares their information so that you know they have their assignments all done. And then it is walking you through, okay, I'm going to check that. I'm going to open their test. I'm going to leave them on Zoom while they take it. And then it will close again when they're done. So the step-by-step is on there. But if you are an at-school teacher, unless you have students who are out, and then you might be proctoring an individual, or unless you end up in a long-term closure, you may not need to do the distance proctoring. And if you're at school and all your kids are taking the test, you're just going to unlock the test while they take it right there in your room.
So I have a quick question, and I apologize for taking up time because it's an Itech question. But as an Itech teacher, now do I just have Itech students, or I have at-home learners as well?
You have both. because you're teaching a language, so yes.
Right. And so for my kiddos that are at-home learners, do they have proctors? Do they have a mentor, or is it just me that they're dealing with?
Because you are an Itech teacher, Sandy, that's her other hat.
Right.
He is your Itech site coordinator. So your students will go to Sandy. The French students will go to Sandy for proctoring.
And then for at home, that's the list that we sent you of Itech contacts. And I can send that again if you need it, but those are the contacts at the other schools that you teach.
Perfect. Thanks. I'll go look at that.
Can I ask a question? Hopefully. I'm a little bit confused, and I got added in a little bit late. Who's in my classes? If I get on Synergy, I have like 4 extra kids on there for my physics classes. And if I get on Apex, I have 1 extra there. I'm not too sure who's right. Like, I can easily delete kids from Apex. But I don't, like, I have a kid who I know has been working on Apex because he sends me stuff, but he's not on my Synergy. I just don't know what's right.
So because we're practicing lots of grace and flexibility, you're going to have situations where that is the case. The best thing to do is to make a specific list. These are the kids that I can't see that I see in Synergy but aren't in Apex. These are the ones that are in Apex, not in Synergy. And then send them to your counselor at Colony. And they are the ones that will need to track that down as far as where the student is actually enrolled. If you find out that you have an at-home learner who is supposed to be in your Apex class, you can add them in. So that's super easy for you if you're working with at-home learners and you just click to add a student or give them the join code. But But you're going to need to know for sure, and your counselor is the one that can clarify that.
So can we talk about the testing thing again? So we have like 3 mentors that are going to be doing most of the testing. A kid finishes the unit and they go, is the idea that they go and look at the calendar that's eventually going to work and they're like, hey, I'm ready to take my test. Who's available right now? Oh, Sandy Sear is available. I'm going to click and start a Zoom meeting with her right now. She opens up the Zoom meeting and then they like show her their study guide or send her a link in the chat and then they take the test right then. Is that how that flows? Or are they having to do like an email back and forth until there's like a time that they choose to take the test?
I can answer that. So Nate, John, what we did as a team, we decided that actually boss man, Mr. Lincoln said that we were going to break it up alpha. And so Sabrina has alpha A through CH. I have F through Z, and Nathan Boleen has some CO through E.
Yeah,
okay?
You got it.
Okay. And at that point, whoever your students are who falls in that particular alpha category, then you need to direct them who their proctor is. So that's going to be something that we're going to need your help with. And I'm sure it's going to take a little bit to line them out. Not a big deal. That's one of the reasons
I've already
why.
sent that out. So, but they, like, it's just going to be so many emails to set up a meeting. And so once the calendar's up, is the idea that they would just look on the calendar and be like, okay, I need to get proctored by Mr. Boleen. Mr. Boleen is available on Thursday afternoon. I'm going to start a Zoom meeting with him on Thursday afternoon, and hopefully I take my test.
Yep.
So in order for this to work, I'm looking at my Apex right now. I need every single teacher that has an at-home class needs to share their Apex class with me. So right now, like I'm looking, I have Bunch, I have Nielsen, and I have Strable. But I need Hill, I need everybody in here that has an at-home class needs to be on my list. So, and I'm going in and I'm looking at Bunch's chemistry class right now. Like I don't know chemistry, but I can go and reset those quiz when that kid's taking the test. I can sit there and watch them. And then if need be, like I can unlock that test from their classroom, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so do the kids go in?
Well, that's why I didn't add, because I thought, so Sandy's still going to add all those classes for you, Nate, and Sabrina. Is that right, Sandy? So that'll happen
Yes,
soon.
sir.
So I just had a kid email me that asking, like, he works all week. He's only available from like 8 a.m. until noon each day, which is not when my office hours will be. And he wants to take like 4 tests at once. He's like, I'd like to get all these tests knocked out of the way. Like, can we just, since this is a real life situation, and Sandy, I just sent the email because I think he's actually your kid. Can we, if I hate to take up time, but can we like walk through that? Like I get the email, like how that works. Like that's a real life scenario, just for my own like understanding of how that works. Cause I don't have access to that. I don't have any history teachers right now on my list on Apex. So even if I wanted to help this kid today, cause I have the time, like I can't, right?
You're correct at this point because I was waiting to make sure everybody was an at-home teacher. I have not placed anybody in there for access. So at this point, you don't have access to help your kid. That'll be rectified in about 15 minutes, I believe. It'll take me about an hour to do that, to double check everything, that I'm adding everything correctly.
This definitely brings up the idea of those real life, like you said, Nathan, those real life situations where there may be multiple students in a home. There may be kids that are working different hours. So as a school site, it is really, really helpful for families if you do have some hours available for students that they can do their testing from 5 to 8 or something. That's going to be something that you're going to need to work with your admin about as far as shifting a duty day, how that can be set up so that you make sure that students have that availability, because it's going to be more than just 1 or 2 there will be many situations where their schedule and your schedule are not exactly the same. And we don't want to set up a situation where, sorry, if your alphabet is in the morning, that's when you have to test. So finding a way to give them that flexibility as only an alternative if they need it. Brian, is your hand raised? I see that hand. Oh, but I don't hear your voice.
Wait. No, I hit the wrong button. So yeah, I found the hand raise thing. It's right there. It's kind of cool. So if proctors, and I guess I'm asking you proctors, if you have office hours and a kid wants to take a test, can they just bop into your office hours and say, "Yo, proctor, can I take the test?"
Can I answer that? So
Please.
I want to give you our experience over summer school, which I think is the most experience we've had in the district for a 2-month-long period where kids were needed to be proctored, completely working from home. We had 2 teachers who worked half-time, and they staggered their day so that we had an 8-hour window open every day where they just sat in their Zoom room, and kids knew they could come in during that period and request a test, and then the proctor would put them into a breakout room, each individual kid, and then watch them back and forth, like bump in and out between the main group and the breakout rooms, checking on kids the whole time. And when you're doing remote proctoring, you can't really watch them 100% because you can't be in each breakout room simultaneously, right? And so it's the illusion to the kid that you're watching them, but you're just checking in on them for a few minutes to see if they're obviously cheating, and then jumping out and checking on the next kid. So we could have, up to 30 kids in different breakout rooms at a time, proctoring different tests from different courses at the same time. But yes, our recommendation is that you guys have published open Zoom sessions where kids know I can pop in for this hour and I'll be able to test.
And I subbed in for that for a week, and it was really helpful. They had the kids trained really well to share their digital notebook before they showed up, so that ahead of time I could go in there and see all of their study guides for a certain unit. Most kids had one giant digital notebook, and the study guides were still in sequential order because they named them with the number of the study guide. So you just kind of scroll down and look for all the 1s or the 2s, depending on which unit. Some kids made a unit folder inside their drive, which was really nice. But having them get that to you ahead of time, you can look at them all, and then their time is maximized and your time is maximized because the student is showing up, you open the test, throw them in a breakout room. The nice thing about breakout rooms is as kids come in, you're chatting with them, and so the other kids are hearing that, and that's what the breakout room does. You can throw them all in the same breakout room so that you just are putting them in a quiet environment once they're starting the test.
Okay, cool. So if we're going to do that, then you're going to have a recurring Zoom link for each of our proctors. So it'd be cool if we had your recurring Zoom link for your times, and we can publish that in our Google Classroom so that our students know, oh, I need to take this with Mr. Boline. They just click, boom, they're there. Rather than having to do this email back and forth.
That's that value of the calendar that has all.
Oh, that's just one more step. If they just had a Zoom link and they just they're available on these days, click go, right?
Right, the Zoom link is in the calendar.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's great. Just one more place for them to have to, dig up and find. If they go to one place, my Google Classroom, and say, oh, Boline's office hours are those hours, I need to take a test. Click, boom, they're there. They don't have to go find a calendar and search through days, right? Because it's consistent. It's always, if it's always first period every other week, then it's.
Yeah, I got you, Mead. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So we can copy the information from the calendar onto our Google Classroom.
Well, that's what I'm hoping for. I mean, if our proctors are cool with that, they just have their Zoom on all the time, and here's your email, here's your Zoom link for their time, and they jump in and go from there, right? Wouldn't that be the quickest, cleanest way to go?
if they're going to take a test, aren't they going to already be in Apex where the calendar is?
The Apex calendar is just for student work. The Google Calendar is where the proctoring options are going to live. So you could easily do both, Brian, where you have, simple links for your kids, but then also that if you want to see the whole calendar, visit this, and then they can click out if they need more information. All right, we are at 10:20 right now. So do we have an admin who'd like to jump in and give direction? I'm looking to see.
I'm just hoping we can make this as simple as possible so kids don't have to go here for this and there for that and there's for something else. If there's a one-stop shop and a quick, easy click, it's going to make it a lot easier on all of us, I think.
And I guess I still am a little bit unclear about testing. So a kid needs to test for me. Would they send Boleen, who's their alpha group, they send Boleen the study guides in some like digital notebook, and then Boleen, they make a test, they look at his test times, like they don't send me the study guides, is that correct?
Whoever is going to be doing the proctoring, they just click the share on their study guides or on their folder. They click share and then share it with the person who's going to be proctoring. So they could share it with you and the other person. That wouldn't hurt if they ended up doing that. But it's the proctor, whoever's opening the test, is the one that's going to need to see that things are complete.
And they're sending them that link through a message on Apex, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, what they have done is they have shared, because you've got those proctors on Google Classroom.
But how is the proctor getting the link?
It's being shared through Google. It's just a Google shared. So they do the shared with me, type the proctor's name in there so that it's shared. They could send them an email with that link in it.
If I have access to the classroom, I don't have access to the test, like if I'm not in as a teacher?
You have access to the test, but you don't have access to whether they have done the work and the study guides to be qualified to take the test.
And that's the stuff that the student is sharing.
That's what they're sharing, is their digital notebook. So as a proctor, you're going to look at two different things. You're going to look at their notebook, and you're going to make sure that everything in that unit has been turned in before you unlock that test.
I was having this conversation with Brunner last night, and it seems like it would be, I don't know if this would be more streamlined. So Brian, if you want to jump in, if we shared those folders, if we already have like a streamlined situation where they have the folder that they're creating their digital notebook in, if we had those folders shared with us, and we could just go to our Google Drive and type in their name because that's what they've created the folder with, couldn't we see all that material ahead of time? And then we could easily, like we could do that work, and then it would, I don't know, does that make sense? I'm just trying to see if that would streamline, if that'd make more sense.
So I understand what you're saying. It's a site decision that you need to decide whether the student is just communicating with the proctor or whether there's going to be a different sharing. So talk amongst yourselves. What do you think?
What was the best process? What was the best way to go?
I thought that we did decide that originally. So if we're going to change it, then we need to all be on board with that. But I thought that it was that the kid shares it with the teacher checks all the study guides, says, yes, this kid's good to go. And then the mentor tests.
Okay, well, I would say I only teach one at-home learning, period 6. I am not looking at any study guides the week that we're doing 1 through 3. I don't have time with no prep. And so if they want to test that week that we've 1 through 3, I'm not going to look at their study guides to know if they're good or not.
Well, except Leslie, so what about, let's say Nathan is the mentor for your kiddo, no offense, Nathan, but you don't know anything about physics. So how does he know if the study guides are
This is what we do
good?
in the cyber centers. This is exactly what we do in the cyber centers. We have to look for completeness, and they are just for note taking. Study guides are just to take notes. That's all they're doing. So basically it's the same as if they had a notebook, but they're being sort of driven a certain direction using these study guides. It's to get the students to view the content, write down notes, and be prepared, have something to study and be prepared for the test. So all the mentor is really doing is looking for completeness, and not like, I don't know, or I'm not doing this, which is common. You see that occasionally. But it is just notes. They're not graded.
So in that case, the mentor would say, like if it says, I don't know, or it's incomplete or whatever, the mentor would kick it back and say, no, you can't test.
Yes, they could make a decision that says, this is not complete. You need to go back and finish your study guides and then come back to me and I will test you. And Sandy can give you really good guidance on that too. She is awesome at that.
And ultimately, if the kid has written gibberish on their study guide and it gets past Boleen, the kid's not going to do well on the test, in which case the kid screwed himself over. Okay.
Because of the way Apex is set up, if they don't do those study guides, we don't know that they have really interacted with the material at all. So there's obviously going to be some kids are going to try to get around it, but by enforcing the study guides and the assignments have to be done, that's us doing our due diligence of, okay, you're an at-home learner, you're working independently. This is how you're going to show me that it's done. And then yes, somebody's going to try to write gibberish or IDK on every line. And, you know, most of the time we will, or you will, proctors will catch that. Sometimes there's going to be discipline issues, just like in any other school situation.
So unrelated, but kind of related question. I thought that the breakout sessions in Zoom was a premium function. Did we, as a district, purchase that function?
You have that function. You need to set it up in your settings. When you create that link, you can enable breakout rooms.
Nate, when you first log into Zoom then for your first session, breakout rooms will be a button along the bottom, kind of near the chat. And you can click it and then it'll say, how many do you want? And I make like a dozen, you know, just to be on the safe side, 15. You don't have to use them all. And then every kid that comes in, you can automatically throw them in one, but I wouldn't recommend it because then you're skipping around, you know, opening tests and going in and out of breakout rooms. I open their test and then I go over and it's right next to the chat. I assign them into a breakout room and it just throws them in there. The cool thing is if they have a question or they finish and they want to talk to you, they can leave the breakout room and return to the main session all by themselves so that they can get a hold of you. You can also tell them to do the raise hand thing if they have a question during the test, and you can bop in there if you're, you know, in breakout room 2 and you need to go back to 1.
I've used the breakout sessions, like I've been in Zoom meetings that have used them, and the proctor jumps around. So the student knows if you're actually in there viewing them or not, correct? Okay.
They do. I hide my video because I don't want, you know, to give them undue anxiety. So I just turn off my video and then I mute myself and I'm just bopping in and out. They never know when you're going to show up, but they see your box there with your photo. It is the element of surprise, Susan. It's awesome. Big brother.
So can I address one of the questions that Brian had? So it says set up students to share their study guide folder with the primary teacher and proctor teacher. So the way that we had set up the student notebook folder, and I'm basically going to use, is with subfolders. If this is their notebook folder, you will have train the student for a subfolder that says study guides unit 1. And this is the folder that they share with the proctors, not the whole thing. I don't need any of this. I just need the study guides to be able to verify that they're complete. Are we having fun yet?
I'm going to sign off because I have to actually run over to Colony and meet with a teacher over there that I am mentoring, and then get on another Zoom. So if anybody has questions for me, just email me.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Rebecca. This has
Bye.
been the best, most informative session, I think, yet. Maybe it's just the collective amount of information, but it's slowly funneling down and becoming more clear. So I appreciate you so much.
Awesome. That's what we were trying to achieve. Thank you guys for coming.
All right, I will go ahead and stop the recording at this point.
Hey, Brett, I got a quick question. Don't hop out yet, please.